Welcome to Rock the Diploma's ELA 30-2 Part B Reading Comprehension Practice Final Session on Visual Texts. So as you can see, our first text here is just a single image, and it has a little bit of a preamble. It says the following graphic is the cover of the 2002 April edition of National Geographic magazine. So take a few moments, closely inspect the elements of this text, then answer the single question for it, and then we will discuss it together. So you can pause the video now. Question 66 asks you, the impact of the magazine cover arises primarily from its focus on, so the impact of it. How is this significant? What are we looking at here? And why? So option A says serenity. So serenity is like peace, tranquility, things like that. Looking at this cover here, it doesn't necessarily scream peace and tranquility. There's nothing violent or anything like that going on here, but serenity seems to be a bit of a weak answer. B says nostalgia. Now this isn't a bad answer, especially given the fact that after 17 years, an Afghan refugee story comes out, we find out what's going on here, and if you wind up seeing the next text wherein it discusses the background for this, you could understand how somebody who had seen this initial photo from 17 years prior could possibly be nostalgic thinking about that, but that doesn't work for everybody. It's just people who were present and were able to see that initial photo. So let's hang on to it as an answer, but we'll see if there's something better. C, historical fact. The impact of this being historical fact, so maybe the story would get into that, but this is looking at the magazine cover itself, and there are 0 historical facts presented here, so we can get rid of C. And then we have D, human interest. And when you talk about news items, a human interest story is like, a dog saved a child from drowning in a river, stuff like that. Usually the stories that happen at the end of the news, and it's not necessarily some major international or significant event, but it's something that people go, how about that? Interesting, right? That's human interest. And based on our options here, this is actually our best answer. So an Afghan refugee story 17 years after she first sort of made a splash in the world. Now our next questions are going to involve a text that has both visuals as well as actual written text. You can see here on this page, we've got, first of all, these juxtaposed portraits here of the same woman, and then we've got a bit of a caption. As you can see here, this is an excerpt from the text, A Life Revealed. And it is describing a situation wherein this young woman whose photograph was taken and it captured the interest of the world, how she's found years later, and her situation is described for us, and you can see the journey that she's taken. Please note with these visuals here that you've got little explanations, and you've got descriptions of the visuals here as well. So it's important to not just look at the pictures themselves, but also to read the accompanying text that comes along with it. So go ahead now, pause the video, take a close inspection of those visuals, read through the text carefully, answer the questions, and we'll look at them together. So question 67. The juxtaposed portraits of Sharbat Gula heighten the sense of her. So we have these two visuals here. They are juxtaposed because they're being placed together to encourage comparison. So heighten the sense of her. A, defeat. I don't look at either of those photos and think that this is somebody who is defeated. If anything, there's strength in there. It's sort of the opposite of defeat. B, resilience. Well, based on what I just said, I think resilience makes sense, right? She's persisting, she is not being defeated, she is still there. B is a pretty good answer. C, vulnerability. first visual, you think young woman, especially if you have the context here, the refugee situation, the horrors that are going on around this woman. Vulnerability might be a tempting thing to pull out there, but it's the fact that she survived and that she's so fierce. Vulnerability is not as good of an answer as resilience. And then D, displacement. We know that she was displaced, but these visuals are not capturing that. So our best answer here is B, resilience. 68, diction and syntax in lines 5 to 7 and in lines 19 to 20 serve to reinforce the idea that in June 1985, the cover featuring Sharbat Gula, so what do we have here? Lines 5 to 7. Her eyes are sea green. They are haunted and haunting, and in them you can read the tragedy of a land drained by war. You have her eyes being sea green. 19 to 20. Now consider this photograph of a young girl with sea green eyes. Her eyes challenge ours. Most of all, they disturb. We cannot turn away. So, based on the diction, the words that are being used, and the syntax, these sentences together, they reinforce the idea that the cover featuring her, A, upset people's sense of security. Now, they disturb, which could be upsetting, but is it upsetting their sense of security? Especially if you're considering people in, say, the United States or wherever, they weren't worried that they were going to be in trouble, right? This isn't happening where they are. So the sense of security part doesn't really make a lot of sense. B, startled people out of their indifference. Well, you have the line, we cannot turn away. Her sea green eyes challenge ours. They disturb. We can't turn away. We are therefore startled out of our indifference. That is a much better answer than A. C, renewed hope for Afghanistan's independence. This is about her eyes and the fact that people are paying attention. This is nothing to do with Afghanistan's independence, unfortunately. D, emphasized the displacement of the Afghan people. I've got the same comment for that. This is about her and how it caused people to pay attention, not about necessarily the fact that they were displaced or whatever. It caused people to pay attention. So our best answer here is B. Question 69, the photographic composition on page 25 is intended to appeal primarily to a Western audience that is, so we've got this photographic composition here. What's going on? So it says here, this guy's a forensic examiner for the FBI. He had this face comparison of photographs taken, and he's like, yep, this is the same person. Second photo here, the inventor of automatic iris recognition says that, okay, these eyes can be used to identify somebody. All right, so these are the visuals. So the composition is intended to appeal primarily to a Western audience that is A, divided by culture. Western audience might possibly be divided by culture, but that has nothing to do with this photographic composition here whatsoever. You can get rid of A. B, captivated by science. Well, both of these visuals and the explanations for them definitely have a lot to do with science. We're talking about automatic iris recognition. We're talking about forensic examiners. Yeah, that's a pretty good answer. C, unimpressed by intrigue. Intrigue is like that whole like international intrigue, and I always think like espionage and spies and stuff like that. But and I mean, whereas, FBI and forensics and, fancy technology and stuff does have something to do with intrigue, it's not as good of an answer as B, the captivation by science, and then D, unmoved by nostalgia. Well, a Western audience may or may not be moved by nostalgia, but what we've got here is this focus on science. So our best answer is B. And now our final question is a linking question. So this is looking at the National Geographic cover as well as that A Life Revealed article. Question 70. Which of the following details from reading 9 enhances an irony in the title found in reading 8? So found was the National Geographic cover. So one of these details here is enhancing an irony in the word found. So A, in them, it's talking about the eyes, in them you can read the tragedy of a land drained by war. It doesn't have much to do, there's nothing really ironic here with the word found. The eyes have, the tragedy there, but it's found. A doesn't. There's nothing ironic, so let's not go with A. B. She found it was easier to look into the lens than at me. Well, maybe looking through the lens, the lens is finding her, but she doesn't want to look at the guy. I guess maybe there could be a little irony there. Let's hang on to B. C. She was embarrassed by the holes in her red shawl. Well, first of all, a lot of people are embarrassed if they've got holy clothing and somebody around them doesn't, and whatever, right? But we're not seeing this irony with found here. Oh, I have to find the holes in my shawl. No. So we can get rid of C. D, just a few years away from disappearing behind a traditional veil. Found, disappearing. There we go. There's our irony right there. Our best answer is D. So there you have it. We made it through a diploma exam. I hope all of this helped you out looking at ensuring that you read the question stem in its entirety, looking at the directive verbs and phrases, making sure that the answer you're selecting isn't necessarily just true about the text, but is really what the question is asking you for. And if you have an opportunity, try to do more practicing on your own, and best of luck at reading comprehension.